Was everyone's Thanksgiving? Everyone have a nice holiday? I know you can't tell me, but type in your favorite side dish because I am curious. It's an ongoing debate. Someone, Nicole, sushi's not a side dish.
Hey, if we're considering pumpkin pie a side dish, then I'll allow it.
Well, you are not the arbitrator of Thanksgiving side dishes, Corey. All right, green bean casserole. Danny, nice. Brussels sprouts. Okay. Yeah, I like it. I like it. My favorite is cranberries. No argument about it. Mac and cheese. That's a good one, Nikki. That is a really good one. Potato salad. Sure, that works. I guess if we're going to count sushi, then we're going to count potato salad. So we'll just let them all in. All right. Sweet potato casserole for Sean. Sean, is that with or without marshmallows on top? We're just going to see. This is going to be, it's going to destroy Corey if he says with marshmallows. It's going to destroy him. With. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm with you, Suzanne. Stuffing is also delicious. I love that. I'm not sure if you're saying ham gravy or ham, comma, gravy. So stuffing and ham with gravy, I don't know. But if ham gravy is a thing, I'm curious what that might be. All right. So today we have, and this is going to be a good one tonight, guys. We have Danny McKenzie, who is going to talk to us about strategic decision-making. And it is really exciting. But before we get to him, you got to get through me and Corey. And I am going to cover risk management, and then Corey will cover environmental scanning. And all of these topics, they fit together really nicely for what we're going to do today. And we're going to cover. So I'll go first. And let's go ahead and get started. And let me share my screen. I have a presentation tonight. And it's exciting. So let me hide those. Let me do that. And go full screen. All right, so here's my week 5 presentation on risk management. So we're going to start with a poll, actually 5 of them. So get your fingers ready and hopefully everybody's able to participate. They're all pretty simple polls. I can identify the common risks associated with a small business. Yes or no? And Corey, you're going to have to be my guy and tell me what we've got for responses.
They're all going to get launched at the same time because I did not realize that you were going to do them one at a time. So. Sorry about that.
Oh, so we've got 5 polls going at one. Okay. Yeah. I can identify the external and internal factors which affect risk for a small business. Yes or no? It is possible to write a business plan that identifies every risk your business might face. True or false? I can identify the common warning signs of risk for a small business. And I can implement, monitor, and evaluate a risk management plan for a small business. So this is basically a pre-test to see how much y'all know about risk.
And there's your poll. So we'll give y'all a couple of minutes to answer those questions.
Not a couple, but close, very close.
Well, a minute, a couple of seconds.
Yeah. Go. Is anyone having issues accessing or answering?
Does not look like it.
What doesn't look like it?
Doesn't look like there's an issue.
Okay. All right. What do we got?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end it.
Okay. All right, so I can identify common risks associated with small business. We had 83% yes and 17% no. I can identify the external and internal factors which affect risk for a small business. Mostly yes, again 83%, and 17% no, so 5 and 1. Then we have, it is possible to write a business plan that identifies every risk your business might face. False. Everybody 100% false. I can identify the common warning signs of risk for a small business. 83% yes again. And I can implement, monitor, and evaluate a risk management plan for a small business. 50% yes, 50% no. Well, you are in luck tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because you are about to see how easy it is to do. Buckle up. Well, maybe buckle up. I'm not really sure what happened there, but okay. What is risk management and why does it matter? So risk management is the act of identifying, assessing, and controlling threats to your business. So you're really just looking at risks. You do it daily in your personal life. I promise you do. Every day you do it. Whether it be how when you're in your car driving and you're looking at, is it, you come to a four-way stop, are you good to go? You do it in, when you're financially, you look at how you're going to spend your money, or should you go spend, $1,200 on that new TV, or should you save it just in case? Like you assess risk all the time without even realizing that you're doing it. And some people are far more tolerant of risk. So chances are that you aren't really afraid of risk if you are starting or have started a small business. You're probably pretty risk tolerant and okay with taking it on. And if you already have a business, you're managing that risk on some level, right? So perfect example is, we just recently, Josh, who's in class with us here, who's attending the academy, his business officially launched on Monday. And there's, he's heavily dependent on supply chain. So he's got risk in supply chain right now, just simply because of COVID. And so figuring out how to manage around that risk and how to work within it was a big part of the plan to get Josh launched with his new company. Why is risk management so important? Because if you're not paying attention to risk, if you're not identifying the risks for your business, then you're not really fully protected. When you think about it, in a few weeks, we're going to have Bill Bolton speak about insurance. And that's all about managing risk, taking a look at what, you need to protect against and where you can probably stand to be a little bit more vulnerable in terms of risk. And Bill's going to cover it in great detail, just from a different angle. But your insurance is risk management. That's one piece of it. So risk protects your business, and it just brings awareness to where you might need extra protection, or where you could afford to be a little bit more vulnerable. It saves you money. I forgot these were here, guys. That's why I kept talking. It saves you money. So when you are planning for risk, then you are able to protect yourself better financially. So for people who, an example could be, you are looking at renting a new space, right? And then understanding what are all of the implications that could happen if you take on an additional building, if you want to open up a second location. And a lot of people had this issue coming into the pandemic, where they'd either just opened up a second location or they were in the process of doing it, and then they couldn't make rent on that location. So this is something that you need to think about as you're assessing risk, is what are some of the things that could happen and how could that impact me financially? It protects your future. So when you manage your risk, you're just protecting the future of the business. You have the ability to have a stronger foundation and to know more about the business and what's going on. So risk management saves you money, protects your future, and it increases the stability of the business. All right. Oh, it also helps you establish insurance needs. I knew I had an insurance bullet in here, but I thought it was on the next slide. All right. So internal risks. There's internal risks, there's external risks, and we're going to look at both of them. But from the internal side, things that you could consider for risk are like the human element, right? So anything that has to do with your people, you could have, one of your key employees or even yourself, like become ill or death. That's a risk to a business, right? So for SB Pace, it's just me and Corey. And if one of us got seriously ill and couldn't work, or one of us died, then we need to have a plan in place for how we're going to handle that. And later on in this presentation, you're going to see a sample of our risk register for what we have, for how we look at some of the risks and how we calculate out what the true risk to the company is. So there's illness and death, theft and fraud. So if you have employees that could be stealing from you, or customers that steal, if you have like a brick and mortar store, right? Or people that might be coming at you with claims of that they never received their product, or their product was damaged, things like that. So those are all risks that you want to consider that are generated from the human side. Low employee morale, that might not seem like an obvious risk, but it really is. So if low employee morale impacts customer service, it impacts employee retention, it impacts the customer experience. So all across the board, if you have employees and your employees are unhappy, that is a risk to your business, a very big risk to your business. There is equipment and technology risks. So you've got servers, you're running laptops, you have people's data, you have applications, tools, and systems that you use every single day. And if the only thing you have is, here's a good example. If you are a website, you have a website and you're selling e-commerce, and that website gets hacked or goes down, that is a risk to your business. You can't sell it. And one of the things that, we talked about this a little bit in the marketing session, but this is also a risk if the only place you do your customer acquisition and your selling is on a social media platform. It's a huge risk to your business because you don't actually own your customers then. That social platform does. So that would fall under equipment and technology as well. Building an office space. So is the building safe? Is it secure? Where is it located? Like what's the neighborhood like that it's in? Is it up to code? Those types of things are risks for your business as well. If you have one office and that office and the office gets shut down, how do you operate your business then? So you need to think about things like that when you're looking at risk. And then supply chain and products. So we talked about this a little bit earlier already with Josh launching his new business. Is there's supply chain issues. You have to be able to get your products. And right now, supply chain issues are very, very common. They have been all year long. I'm sure every single person in this class has made an attempt to buy toilet paper at some point this year and been denied. That is a supply chain issue, right? So think about that from the perspective of risk and what it would mean to your business if you only have one vendor and that vendor goes out of business, or that vendor can't produce your product. Like what does that mean for you, and what can you do to protect yourself? All right. And don't forget, as you guys have questions, drop them in the Q&A. I really hope that this is the week that we get a lot of questions, especially for Danny, because I think you're gonna love what he has to say. External risks. So for external risks, excuse me, Competition and market risk. So thinking about changes in the market where, one day your product is really, really hot, or your service, and then, the next day people don't seem to need it anymore, or it's replaced by the next big thing. Or your competitor moves directly across the street from you and has better prices and better service. So understanding the competition, understanding the market. When employees leave to work for the competition or to start their own business, that happens all the time. So a lot of times, in fact, I know we have somebody in this class left his company to start his own company, and there were some non-competes in place for things that he couldn't do and had to wait X amount of time after he left. So when you have employees, especially if it's like a top salesperson or something, and they leave, that is a risk to your business. And you can't always prevent people from leaving, right? There are things you can do to try and keep them, but if people want to leave, they're going to leave, and you need to have succession plans in place, and you need to have evaluated that risk. Rent increases. So this is always a big one. As times get tougher, then, a lot of people will reduce their rent to help, but there's also periods when rents go up. And if you're not expecting that, or you aren't building that into your model, then you have a risk to your financial future. So you need to look at the longevity of the rent that you have, and understand the financial impact if your rent were to go up. You could also look at supply cost increases. So you have a vendor and their prices increase. If there's suddenly all this, let's say in January, we see the cost of gasoline start going up again. Well, that has a very, very direct impact on the cost that you're going to pay for supplies, because if those costs are coming via a semi, then they're paying more for fuel. Those costs have to get passed down. Everything gets passed down. I know when Corey and I worked for Performance Food Service, they had implemented these fuel service charges. It happened with the airlines too. Maybe a more relevant and better example for you guys. When after 9/11 and the airlines had such a huge impact financially, does everybody remember when you used to be able to check bags for free, and then they started charging for checked bags? Well, that was supposed to be just to help them recoup costs, or maybe that came after 2008. But that was intended to help them recoup costs because of rising fuel costs, and they never went away. And airlines make billions of dollars off of baggage fees. So that's just a trickle down cost, and you need to be aware from the supply chain perspective of where you may get hit with those additional costs. You can't do anything about it, but you can plan for it and understand how you're going to manage through that. There's also business environment risks. So you have laws and ordinances, and we see this happen all the time. It just happened recently in as weird as this might sound, in the CBD area. So people who are buying, CBD oils or products, this summer, I don't know how many of you are aware of this summer, if you had a product that had CBD in it, you lost the ability to sell that online, because some farm bill in Kentucky, I believe, it originated in Kentucky, and it was a farm bill was passed that it stopped CBD businesses from being able to sell online. And we had a client who could not sell his product online because there was no payment processor that would let them process payments. And to the point where, because we had written on our website a blog post about that business, just talking about the business, because we had been doing for a long time this shout out to small businesses on Friday, and we gave one of the spots to him and interviewed him and wrote up about his business. Well, our payment processor stopped letting us process payments because we had the word CBD on our website. So we had to take down his shout out to small business, and we cannot even let him give us a testimonial on our website, because Stripe will not process payments for us if we do. So you really need to be aware of laws and ordinances and the risks. So paying attention, and this is going to come up a little bit when Corey does environmental scanning, where you'll talk about this. Weather and natural disasters. So this one, hurricanes, blizzards, tornadoes, just understanding the risk for the area that you live in and what sort of things you can do to plan around that. And then changes in community. This has been a big one this year. You guys should have seen this over and over again play out. I mean, we basically watched the city of Minneapolis get burned to the ground this year. Those are changes in the community, right? I think every city in the country went through something really, really big this year in terms of the way that the community responded to things and how things were handled. So just understanding what's happening in your community overall. And again, this will be one that Corey will probably touch on a little bit in environmental scanning. Personal conflict risks. So as long as humans continue to be human, personal conflict will exist. And by the way, I am all for becoming a robot. So I just want to say that if that option ever becomes available to me, I'm going for it. In your personal life can become a risk, because if you have an unsupportive family, unsupportive spouse or significant other, or you're running a small business, you're working all the time, and that can get really old for your spouse or significant other or your kids or your friends if you're not, because you're less available. And it becomes even worse when you're first starting out, if you're not making the money that you think you're going to be making. And it's tough. The first 6, 12, 18 months can be really tough financially. And that is going to have an impact on you. So there's risk there, because people may want to quit. If they just can't continue to commit to it because it becomes too big of a conflict in their personal life. Visibility in the community. So we had a client earlier this year who really got hammered because she ran a scholarship to train, took a scholarship for yoga training. And essentially you could become a certified yoga trainer. And she's been doing it for years, right? And people apply, and then there's a winner. And this year just happened to be that one of the winners, because I think there's numerous, one of the winners was a police officer. And the announcement was made long before any of the disruption started to happen this year. But once the disruption started happening, and there was a lot of social justice warriors out there that were just looking for ways to cause trouble, and they identified that she was supporting police, and they labeled her business as a racist business. And she had no idea what to do. She wanted to take the scholarship away, and we kind of helped her with some crisis management through that, how to communicate that. And it was an awful experience for her. It was really hard to watch it happen, because she's probably one of the nicest people on the planet and was really undeserved, but she got attacked. So understanding the support that you have in the community and the movements that are happening around you. And again, that we talked about a little bit earlier in the just knowing what's happening in your community as things change, that is important for you to be able to manage risk. Employees with commitments outside of work is another area of risk, right? So you've got employees and maybe they have school age kids or little kids, and you have to understand what it is that they need to commit to outside of work that has to get done, and it has to come first for them, right? Those are their commitments. So you have a risk there in terms of their availability and how you manage through that, because you don't want to lose your good employees because they're never available for their family, but you also need to understand how much availability they have for working in your business. And then complacency. We get lazy. We're happy with, hey, we made $500,000 last year, or whatever that number is. Insert your number here. And now you're just kind of coasting, and that complacency, it's not, it can be very detrimental to your business, because things change quickly, and owning a small business is not a set it and forget it type of thing. You've got to constantly have your both hands on the wheel and be working. All right. So identifying risk. Business plan. So as I just said, it's not a set it and forget it type of an exercise, right? So when you create a business plan, your business plan should identify risks, and you need to continuously go back and consistently, not continuously, you need to consistently go back and review your business plan to make sure that it is up to date, that you're still capturing the right risks. A lot of people think that a business plan is just something that you write and you don't look at again. And that's absolutely untrue. Your business plan should be looked at regularly, along with, all of the other pieces that go into your business plan. In fact, I just pulled out Josh's business plan earlier today because I wanted to look at what we had for risks and what we needed to update. Pay attention to external warning signs. So the environmental scanning, again, that Corey's going to talk about next, you're going to see how to watch, how to do environmental scanning and how that can impact your business. So pay attention to what you see, look for risks to your business. I don't know that any of us could have predicted what 2020 was going to have in store for us, but some of us could have been much better prepared from a business perspective. And then pay attention to internal warning signs. So look at your debt to equity ratio. When we had Sean and Marcy and Corey speak a couple of weeks ago on talking about all the financials, this is important. Like, look at that. If you've got way more debt than you have equity, that's a problem. And you need to address that, because that's a risk to your business, the future of your business. If you're relying heavily on a small number of customers for the majority of your revenue, this is a risk. And this is a risk that a lot of small business owners fall into. And in fact, one of the speakers that we have later in the next couple of weeks, hopefully we'll tell the story of having only one client when she started off, and that client, she relied on that client for 100% of her income, and without warning, that client had to terminate the relationship and couldn't pay the back money that they owed her because they were having financial problems and she was not paying attention to that. And it completely changed her business. Her business survived, but it changed her business, and she was worried. So you need to make sure that you're not relying heavily on just one or two customers, or, that 90% of your revenue is coming from one or two places. You've got to be diversified, and you have to understand the risk to your business there. Cash flow problems, again, back to week 3. So understanding how your cash flow works and keeping an eye on that. That's a risk. If you've got cash flow problems, it's a risk. And then employee turnover rate would be another good internal warning sign. You've got a lot of people quitting. You have people that you hire and they quit very quickly. That's a problem. There's a risk. You've got a risk to your business there, and you need to figure out what's going on. Create a risk register. Ooh, fancy term, right? Well, and they're also exciting to create. So not only is it fancy, it's exciting, guys. Think about your internal and external areas of your business and note down every risk you can think of. It's not a bad exercise, in all honesty. I know it doesn't sound very fun, but it's an important one, and we'll walk through it a little bit here. Okay, so assessing risk. What's the potential impact to the business for each risk? So this is how we do it, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this. So this is just our approach, right? So go through, we list out all the risks that we can think of, and then we rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 in each of these areas. The likelihood to occur, the impact if it occurs, and how long it will take to recover. So the lower the score, the better. The lowest score possible is 1. The highest score possible is 125. So it becomes a math equation, but you have to use it's that fuzzy number stuff that Corey talked about on the finance week, when he was talking about your business case and return on investment. And he said, sometimes you have to use fuzzy math. It's fuzzy here in that you have to decide what the number is. So here's an example for you. Your top sales guy quits to start his own business. So what's the likelihood of that happening? So I gave it a 3. He makes decent money, but he also sees there's a lot more opportunity to make money at a different, by starting his own business where he gets all the entire piece of the pie. So the impact to your business, if it occurs, that's a 4. So he's your top guy. He probably is going to take his accounts with him if he goes, and it is a big impact. And then the timeline to recover, you can hire another sales guy. You may have, somebody that already is on the sales team that could quickly step up, but I did put it at 3 because you're going to lose some customers and you will lose momentum, right? So that becomes 36, which really isn't that high of a score out of 125. And I really hope, Corey, when you reviewed this for me, you checked my math, because that would be terrible if you didn't, or if my math was wrong here. But, so we've got a 36 out of 125, and these ranges, this is arbitrary, right? Based on what you want it to be for your business. So again, we've got that kind of the fuzzy math coming in and you pick, but for the sake of this example, we set the range with a score of 0 to 20. It's a low risk. 21 to 50 would be medium. 51 to 100 is high, and 101 or above is grab your fire extinguisher because you've got a problem, right? So we put this one at a 36. So it's a medium risk. And when it's a medium risk, it probably needs a mitigation strategy where you figure out, like, what do I do as a backup here in case this occurs? So just as some examples for what you could do to mitigate this risk, one, you could put together a really good compensation plan for this salesperson to give them an incentive to not leave. You could make sure they have a non-compete where if they leave, they can't take their customers with them. Though I think we all know you can't stop somebody from buying from somebody else. So if a sales guy leaves and his clients follow him, there's not a lot you can do about that. So you just kind of have to be prepared. I would say another great mitigation strategy on this one is build up a solid pipeline so that you can continuously be adding in new clients, so that it lowers the impact if the salesperson leaves, if this risk is recognized. All right, so control the risk. So you identify it, mitigate what you can, and monitor the rest. There are some risks that just simply cannot be mitigated. Like you can't stop a tornado from coming through. You can't stop a hurricane, but you can have a plan to deal with it if and when it happens. And then you just got to monitor it. There are risks that you're going to accept. So here's a sample risk register. This is my last slide, guys. So here's 4 risks. And this is from our risk register, but you can see these aren't really valid. I just made these up for the purposes of this, so you guys could see what a risk register looks like, right? So we've got COVID-20, and the likelihood of it happening, we put it at a 4 because we feel like that's probably going to happen, and the impact, we also put that at a 4, just simply because our customers are small business owners, and if businesses get shut down, or if we have another bout of what a good portion of 2020 looked like, then small businesses may not have any money to actually pay us. So it's a pretty significant impact for us. And then the recovery time, I gave that a 5 just simply because everybody's pretty much already decimated. So that gives it a score of 80. Our mitigation plan is systems and processes in place for all activities in order to be as efficient as possible, build reserves back up in the event of lost clients, and make lists of possible pivots, right? So, and it's open. Like we'll continue to kind of brainstorm through different ways that we can prepare for that. We can't prevent COVID-20 from happening. So it's all about how we manage through it when it does happen. The next risk, Julie wins the lottery. Likelihood is at a 1. Impact is a 5 because I'm bouncing the second it happens. And then recovery time, I feel like Corey would have a really tough time recovering from my absence because, you know, I am 50% of the business, but still, even with that, it's only a score of 20. So we can document, and all three of the next three all have the same mitigation plan, which is documentation on all processes, put terms into the operating agreement that applies a penalty if either Corey or Julie leaves without notice. And that risk, if you notice, the status is accepted, which means we can't really prevent it. We're going to accept that this is what we will do if this risk comes to fruition. The next one is Corey moves to the mountains to live off the land. Likelihood of 3. I think there's a strong chance that could happen. Impact is a 5. He is, after all, 50% of the business, and the recovery time is a 4. So that's a score of 60. Same mitigation plan, and we accepted that risk as well. And then Corey or Julie gets a full-time job offer they can't refuse. The likelihood is 1 because neither one of us are looking. And the impact is, again, a 5. The recovery time is a 4, and the score is a 20. And we've accepted that risk as well. And that, my friends, is risk management.
All right, thanks, Julie. I will jump into environmental scanning. So there's a lot of kind of overlap in what we've already talked about up to this point through the Academy and with what Julie just presented with the risk management. The environmental scanning is going to be a little more granular, and we're going to jump into that right now. Sure that's the right one. And it is perfect. Okay, so environmental scanning. These first couple of slides is just going to be me kind of talking about what it is and why it's important. So this is going to be just a high level overview. There's a lot that goes into environmental scanning. There are some resources out there like books and one-pagers. I couldn't really find much in resources if you're looking for anything in terms of books, resources, classes, that type of stuff. I feel it's a shame because it really is a useful skill to have. It's a useful, like, just knowledge, like just a way to look at the world and your business. Just for instance, one of the other attendees on this particular academy, he and I both took the same class while we were in college, and we dedicated an entire semester to the subject of environmental scanning. And to give you an example of how detailed it was, our final presentation was, well, my personal final presentation was 120 pages long without any images included. If you included the images, we published a novel for our final presentation. And this was about one subject. It was about one company and about what they could do to take advantage of certain things that are happening within, the realm of their industry. It can be very intense, like I just said, but it's also something that's much easier to grasp than, for instance, our finance session that we had. It just takes a little bit of time, and it takes awareness and your ability to think outside of the box. That's all you need. You need to be creative. So what is environmental scanning? It's the constant analysis of what's going on around you, like in and around your business, to find threats, opportunities, weaknesses, etc. So it's kind of like a SWOT. It's kind of like that risk assessment, but it's a little more real time in terms of like things that are going on right now versus things that could be something that happens down the road. It's like I said, more of a real time thing. And it's basically just knowing what's going on in your industry and physical environment and understanding how it affects your business. So in reality, you probably are already performing this on a basic level. You're just looking around, reading the news, watching the news, listening to whatever it is, and just figuring out things that you need to do, ways to react, etc. Sorry about that. And it's an ongoing process, and it can't be, it can be formal or informal. So you don't have to do this just once a year. It's not like a SWOT where you're going to perform, this thing with your whole team. It's just as you're going along, you're eating breakfast, check out the news, figure out how what's going on might affect your business. And there's many ways to perform environmental scanning, and there are many sources of information that you could use. News, blogs, industry emails, podcasts, etc. Anything where any source of information you can get is someplace that you can use for your environmental scan. And it's a really good idea to spread it out over multiple sources. So don't just read the same news column every day. Don't just read the same industry email every week, whatever it is. Like, you want to spread it out and get kind of a different perspective on everything that's going on. And you want to think outside the box, like I said, and you want to also think outside of your echo chamber. So especially these days, it's very divisive. If you think one way or a different way, you might not have a desire to listen to the other sources, but you're not there to get their opinion. You're there to just get information. And that's what this is all about, is just collecting information, and then you form your own opinion based upon your experience, your knowledge, whatever it is, to determine the direction of your business. And once you pick your sources, you want to make sure that you are keeping yourself informed, and you're already low on time. So for example, you should consider podcasts that you can listen to while you're driving to and from work, or to and from the store, or whatever it is. You could even split the work between colleagues and connections that you have. Now's a great time to leverage or even create a network. You can create a Facebook group for your particular industry, whatever it is, where people can share knowledge and whatever resources they have, so that everybody kind of, rising tide raises all ships type of situation. And then there's like webinars and other online presentations are widely available. You can attend those. You want to just kind of, again, look at everything that could potentially impact your business, whether it's positive or negative. With the risk, you're looking for, what Julie's presentation, you're looking for things where it could potentially hurt your business. In this, you're also looking for things that could potentially help your business. And this isn't an hour-long process either. So you want to just make quick notes. It's something that you might want to just jot down, circle, whatever it is, and then tell yourself that maybe you want to look into it later. And so at first it's pretty quick. You just, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this, and then go from there. You want to look in places like the political landscape, regulations, or tax changes. We're going to talk about economic things like changing in buying habits or disposable income. We'll talk about technology, what's new, what's changing, those types of things. And then we've got things like cultural issues, like trends in dieting, clothing, etc. Political culture is another one you want to look at as well. And then areas that are specific to your industry, which I couldn't list because I don't know your industry. When you're tracking your scans, so on this slide right here, we have this is something that we've included within our own workbook for our book, where you just list what it is, where you found it, what the information is, what the impact to your business is, and then a potential action plan. So it could be, on this day in whatever news source, I found out this, legislation that's coming down and it's going to impact me this way. So it's pretty simple. We have notebooks where you could just go, like, I create my own notebook where I go in and I just list everything that I think may or may not happen, and what I think the impact would be to my business, myself, like anything. I mean, environmental scanning doesn't really necessarily have to be limited to your own, your business. It could be yourself as well. And once you kind of get an idea of some things that are going on, and some of these things would be, for instance, they could be repeating. So on March 1st, I saw this one thing that happened. And then on March 15th, I saw the exact same thing, and here's some more news, and then whatever. Like you're looking for, you're reading in between the lines essentially. And once you kind of get out of, and yeah, this is the slide there. So after you get out of that, you want to start prioritizing and looking into those things that could like have a direct impact on your business, again, positive or negative. So you want to make sure that you're not just focusing on mitigating risk, you are taking advantage of opportunities. And that's a big part of environmental scanning. So we're going to jump into an example, and I'm going to bring up the chat if I can, but we're going to talk about the 2020 pandemic as an example. And you want to start with the obvious and kind of adjust your plan for what's a little more obscure, and look for things that you need to address now that, like, again, are the obvious, and then look at what's like a little more way out there, put on your tinfoil hat, and maybe create some scenarios that don't actually, that aren't existing now, but could potentially exist if, the right situation occurs. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my chat up right now. So we have, with the example 2020 pandemic, the obvious things that are the things you've already experienced or heard or read about. These are the things that you've experienced in your industry. There's potential for future lockdowns. There's potential for a future pandemic. There's supply chain issues, like Julie said. There's less obvious things like changes to regulations and laws. You may or may not know what's coming down the pike. So you have to think about those potential shifts in buying practices or demand from your customers. Long-term economic effects. And so those could be positive or negative depending upon your industry or what you think is going to happen. And then another one, additional insurance expense. So pandemic insurance was not a thing that anybody thought about years ago. And now everybody is probably thinking about, maybe this is something that I need to purchase. And funny story about the business continuity insurance, which was, something where if for whatever reason, something out of your control, your business is out of business, the business continuity would pay you for your missed time. But after it's either the SARS or the MERS, one of those pandemics back in the early 2000s, most of the insurance agencies changed the wording in those policies, and pretty much like almost nobody was covered with their business continuity insurance because of that change in the clause, and nobody expected a pandemic to actually happen. So maybe you need to get pandemic insurance, something to think about while you're, opening up business. And then you start getting into the way out there, like I said, the tinfoil hat area, where you're talking about pandemic passport, which obviously, like, in my honest opinion, is not that way out there, because there are some certain things going on right now that are occurring where, you may need to show you have immunization, or, you've been tested, whatever it is, to go to a concert, a sports game. I've seen some things in Europe where they're talking about potentially doing it for the high volume places like restaurants, things like that. And if you are in a business that has a high volume of customers, this is something that you might want to think about. Crazy thing that I'm thinking about, but the government loves to just extend their arm into every facet of every business that they possibly can, but the health department being a part of your business. And if you have an office building, you've never had to get a health inspection, but you might, because you want to make sure that the government wants to make sure that you're getting your COVID inspection. There could be continued or new civil unrest based upon whatever happens from this pandemic, whether it's economic, political, whatever it is. And then what happens if there's mass migration? Everybody leaves the city because they're scared of a disease or whatever. Like, these are all, they may seem crazy. And again, they might be crazy. You never know, but these are just kind of like the out of the box thinking that you need to have when you're looking at something like the pandemic. There's the obvious, there's the things that may happen, and then there's the things that I should consider. So I'm going to give y'all a couple seconds, whatever, to put in the chat some other things that you might think about. Like, if you are experiencing this pandemic, which we all are, like, what are some other things that we should think about? It could be specific to your industry. It could be, just something if you're an industry that you're looking to get into.
Corey, can you repeat the question?
Just other things that you would need to think about in order, like using the example of the pandemic, like what are some other areas that you want to, or like subjects or whatever, just things that might affect your business So if it's like the obvious is the future lockdowns, but like if you get into less obvious, like um, for Sean, our accountant, like how to write off certain things. We've got martial laws and a potential thing, but yeah, that is an option. Single employee business. If you end up sick, how do you deliver, meet deadlines? That's a great example. New technologies. Yes. All right. Well, we'll just kind of go on from there. Using let's say the pandemic passport example. So we've got, in order for anybody to go to your business, to your employees, whoever it is, your customers, there might be some health requirements for scanning the employees and your customers, and you might need some new equipment. Procedures are and equipment and procedures might be required. You're going to incur additional costs because you're going to have to buy that technology. You're going to have to train your staff. There might be an increase in wait times based upon whatever the procedure is to get customers into your door. And so, in this example, we're going to talk to this person at the Virginia Health Department and then potentially offer incentives to our employees to continue to work from home. There's potential backlash from non-compliant customers. So people who aren't going to wear their masks or get the vaccine or show that they've been tested or whatever it is. So there's negative interactions with your staff. There's potential for lawsuits. And so you need to think about that. Like you might need better training, better understanding of the laws as they are passed. And then is there just an overall shift to digital? Like, are you never going to be a physical business ever again? And from there, the potential impact is you could probably lay off some people and you're going to lower your payroll expense, which is great. Improved automation, though, is costly, potentially, depending upon where the technology is. And, you might have to outsource to, a remote service company, whatever it is. So from there, you want to just talk about like continuing on improving your mobile app and, your online deals, whatever that is. And let's see, sorry. So the goal of this is just to stay ahead of the landscape you're in. The goal of all of like the environmental scanning is you want to be proactive instead of reactive. And so, for instance, with COVID, almost nobody was ready for this. And I mean, there's a few people we've talked to who, like, I saw this or whatever. And I mean, yes and no. Nick Kokonis was talking about his business. He owns restaurants in the Chicago area, and he also owns this company called Talk. It's an app, and it's basically like OpenTable. It's a reservation app, and it was big in Asia. And he was talking about how in March or, February, March, January, somewhere at the beginning of the year, all of the reservations just kind of like went from always busy to kind of trickling down to just like a dead stop. Like they went from business to no business. And this was without news or anything, but he was able to look at that and say, okay, we need to prepare for this because this is probably coming our way. If they went from, slam packed to 0 reservations, we might see the same. So he kind of started preparing his business for that. He was still a little reactive. I mean, it hit all of us quickly, but he was able to read his own business and say, okay, we need to, think that this is coming our way. And the main reason is this gives you an edge on your competition, because in theory, you're going to see things that are coming before they actually hit. So again, being proactive versus reactive. The last thing that I want to touch on are trends and fads. When you're doing environmental scanning, the two things that you want to hit are trends and fads, and determine what the difference is between the two of them. The difference is that trends have a staying power where fads fade out somewhat quickly based upon whatever it is. So if we're looking at our screen here, we've got the slap bracelet, which I did a search on and was surprised to see that they are still widely available for sale, but I thought that went out in the 90s, as did the Pogs. We've got the crazy dress from the 1800s, and then pole sitting, which was a thing in the early 1900s. And again, these are all things that made a ton of money at the time and faded out somewhat. Again, some of them stuck around. Slap bracelets still around. I don't see many people wearing those dresses nowadays. And I have no idea how you could make money off of pole sitting, but I'm sure somebody tried at the time to do that. So you want to determine what the difference is between, or like what you want to understand if you're dealing with a fad or a trend. And so, for example, NCR is a company that makes computer systems nowadays. And back in the day, they started off as the National Cash Register Company. So they made cash registers, and that was their thing. And if you worked with Julie and I on a certain project, you would know that NCR actually stands for needs change request, because their technology is not where it should be. But anyway, they understood the trend that retailers will, in theory, always need a way to perform and record transactions with their customers. And they're going to provide that ability to their customers regardless of whatever technology is being used. So if it's cash registers, if it's a computer system, if it's an ERP, the enterprise, now I'm drawing a blank on what that stands for, resource planning, all of those things that NCR just wants to provide a solution for people who sell. They're going to be that intermediary, and that's what they do. So that's an example of somebody who's dealing with the trend. Retailers need to sell to customers, versus somebody who's like, all we're going to do is sell cash registers, and cash registers will likely be extinct very soon. That doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of a fad. You just need to make sure that you have a plan to pivot. So again, if slap bracelets are all the rage right now, that's great, but maybe you need to make sure that your company has other alternatives to the slap bracelet, or you have a way to offload your bulk of slap bracelets when you realize that that fad is dying out. And FIFO is an accounting term, and it's also something that is used in the restaurant industry. And you want to make sure that what you have, you want to be the first in this example, you want to be the first in, you want to hit that fad, you want to be the leader, but you also want to be able to get out quickly, because you don't want to be that person who's still selling, hyperlight t-shirts or hypercolor t-shirts, in the early 2000s, because you just got a ton of boxes you need to get rid of. So that's that for environmental scanning. It's just identifying what's going on in your world, in your industry, figuring out how it might affect you, and then just tracking that. And it's just a much more real-time analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, really. So I'm going to pass this on to Danny.
Hello. So I know by name one of you on here, Bill. He sent me a text. And of course, my dogs have not been barking for the last hour, but now they're going to start barking. So forgive me if you hear that. Give you a little bit of history just so you know who's up here talking, like who's this guy, right? So I work with a PEO. We do HR, payroll, risk management, and workers' comp for companies. All the back office stuff that business owners that when you went into business didn't realize that it would take to actually run the business effectively. And all of that administrative headaches we take away from the business owner. So
Danny,
yes.
can you just tell everybody in the group what PEO stands for?
Yep. So it's a professional employer organization, co-employment, where you absolve some of the responsibility of the employee employer relationship. And we can talk offline about what that means. But basically, again, probably 40 to 50% of your day is dealing with administrative stuff that, when partnered with the right organization, can help. Just like IT, right? If you're not an IT company and you spend time doing IT, it's cheaper and more efficient to outsource it than it is to do it yourself. Same thing with HR, payroll, risk management, and workers' comp. So that's what we do. More importantly, though, we strategize with our business owners on thinking strategically about their business. And what I want to get into is kind of one of our, a couple of our presentations that we do with business owners to really identify a lot of what Julie and Corey were talking about already in reference to risk management and environmental scanning and coupling all of that. And when do you make the decision that's going to impact your business, right? So let me start sharing my screen here. And I'm going to draw some stuff as if we're sitting in front of each other on a whiteboard. All right. Let me take off my keyboard here. All right. So forgive me if you can't see me, but we are doing this thing. All right. So a lot of things we've already talked about, whether it be environmental scanning or risk management. We have identified 6 key pillars that have an impact on your business. And that is the people, your process, pipeline, which we consider to be sales, your product, the product that you sell, finance, and culture. Those are the 6 key pillars that we identify that have an impact on your business. Now, it's interesting when I ask a room full of business owners, which one's the most important? And depending on where you are in your business will determine which one's the most important. By example, I'm sure Google or Facebook right now, finance isn't a problem for them. Their biggest issue is culture. If you're in startup mode, your biggest issue is sales and finance, cash flow, selling new deals, contracts, whatever you're doing. So really having a pulse on where each of these 6 categories fall in relation to what's important, what's going to break, and what needs to be fixed now. So the way we do that is we look at everything based on this chart here of time, and then whatever measurable, whether it be money or revenue or sales or whatever that is, you can identify in a certain amount of time, you can generate X amount of revenue, right? And so what we do is we look at these inflection curves, and everybody's seen a business that starts out and it's, let's say it's a landscaping company. And this is the typical process and the plight of the small business owner. You got one employee, it's you cutting grass, and the neighbors like it. So next thing you know, you got to get a helper. And then the next thing you know, you got to get 2 trucks and 4 employees. And then you have 6 trucks and 12 employees. And then next thing you know, you start plateauing. And then if you don't change it, I don't like that. Nice thing about a whiteboard here. So you get this little plateau here, inflection curve, where everything was going great, but then it started to plateau. And because you didn't make any changes, it actually started impacting your business and you started losing revenue. So the way we look at this, there's 4 key steps. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the first is the idea, and it's unlimited runway. So I had an idea to start cutting grass. I can cut as many grasses as I need to. I can cut as many lawns as I want to make as much money as I can. But I'm working 80 hours a week and I'm generating $150,000 of revenue for round numbers. Okay, so what's the only reason you have an employee? It's to get back time. Because if you could, you would keep all the revenue and do all the work yourself, and you wouldn't need employees to pay. But unfortunately, you can't do it all, and you can't keep all the money, or everybody would be in business, right? So you start the business, you have this unlimited runway where you can keep doing work that way until the cows come home. For the next 30 years, you can cut grass. Well, then at a certain point, once you hit a certain revenue, it's stable, but it's a limited runway. 3 is a plateau. You're working 80 hours a week. And to Julie's point earlier, your spouse never sees you and she doesn't like, or he or she doesn't like that anymore. So you have to make a change. And if you don't make a change, you're going to inflect, and it's actually going to cost you money, because the revenue you're generating here, because you need to be elsewhere, or because you need to do other administrative stuff in your business, you've actually started to decrease, and you're back more right about here on revenue, and you're not able to be as successful as you thought you could be. Well, what if, here's the concept. What if you could migrate that plateau, knowing that, okay, I have a cap based on my ability to do, and that cap is X revenue, or that cap is X time. So the better clarity you have in identifying this potential plateau, then you can actually start back here and migrate it to new heights. And now, whether that means hiring a second employee, or hiring a fourth employee, or hiring a manager to handle those 4 employees, now that idea is fresh again. And then over time, it's going to be stable. But then again, if you don't fix it, then you're going to end up plateauing and eventually losing money. So there's 2 scenarios that happen when it comes to this. And some people, it happens to them and they don't realize what's going on. So again, we got time and we got revenue. So what ends up happening to a lot of business owners is business is going great, they plateau, they fail, they fix it, but they fix it down here. So what does that mean? Now they fix it and it plateaus and it goes back down, and then they fix it down here, and then they fix it and then it goes and it plateaus, and they're running the rat race of fixing it when it's broke. And if you wait till it's broke, you're never really getting any kind of growth in your organization. Versus, and this is what we call a lifestyle business. This lifestyle business, you're making 100 grand a year. You've got a great work-life balance. If that's what you want, that's fine. But then what's your end game? Do this as long as you can and then you're done? Do you want to sell it to your kids? Do you want to give it to your kids? Probably not in a lifestyle business where you are constantly hitting this threshold of maximum productivity, and then something breaks and you have to fix it. And then you hit this threshold again of maximum productivity, and then something breaks and then you fix it. And then you hit this, and again, it's repeated. Versus the business that starts here, and you identify before the plateau even occurs what the plateaus are going to be, then you can migrate it and reach new heights. Then you can migrate it and reach new heights. And this is what we call a growth organization. An organization that you've identified at these critical junctures before things started leveling out in the plateau, what is going to cause this plateau to happen. Obviously, there's things that you can't control, like we discussed already. But there are things in people. You might have the wrong employees to take you from here to here. The employee that took you from here to here is not always the same employee that's going to take you from here to here, and especially not from here to here. Okay? Keep that in mind as you grow. Process. The way you do business. Is that going to change? The register company that Corey spoke about, they had to change in order to get new growth, right? Who didn't change? Blockbuster, Toys R Us. They didn't go digital. They stayed brick and mortar, and now you see what happens. And so, was there a time prior to them inflecting, Blockbuster, Toys R Us, you can name it, there's a slew of companies that happens to, Is there a time where you could have identified and said, you know what, there's a potential plateau coming. What can we do to change, to grow, to continue to grow, right? And that's in your process. Pipeline sales, the way you sell today may not, I never thought I'd be selling on GoToMeeting. It's more socially acceptable now. I'm having meetings with people to talk about what we do, and it's a new process. It's a new sales process. The product, who does your product serve, and is it sustainable over a certain period of time? Obviously, if you're selling registers, cash registers aren't still around anymore, right? It's all digital. Finance, cash flow, we talked about that, and culture is big. Culture is really big when you start getting up into these levels here. Even down here, it can be, because if you hire the wrong person, it can really impact and be a negative impact on your organization. So it's a lot of information. Again, identifying these 6 pillars. Okay. And this, I do this over a whole day meeting with one client to identify, okay, who in your organization is an A player, a B player, and a C player, and identify them. And without going into detail, we can have conversations offline about what that means. But you kind of get the gist. Are they A player is somebody who the organization's better for them being there. When you leave for the day, they get stuff done without having to call you 10 times. The B player is going to do exactly what you tell them to, but nothing more, nothing less. And the C player is somebody you have to always fix their mistakes, and you have to always go back and talk to customers about them, apologize, whatever. But those people change within the organization, especially as you grow. This A player down here who got you to here may not develop as the organization grows, and now becomes a C player. And that's tragic. And I've seen it happen way too many times. Again, process, pipeline, product, finance, and culture all can be done identifying, okay, those 6 categories, each has an inflection curve. And one of your homework assignments, if you have time and want to do it, could be, okay, people. Where am I at on my people? Is it stable? Are my people causing me to plateau? Am I inflection? Product. Is my product still a great idea and I have unlimited runway, I can sell this forever? Or is it stable, but I see some things coming? And it's interesting, the timeline associated with each of these things. In my business, I can see about a year from now. What I'm looking at is, okay, a year from now, what's going to break in these 6 areas? Another conversation that we have is, what if your business was 3 times the size it is right now? What would need to change? If you're doing $1 million in revenue right now and you started doing 3 million, what in these 6 areas would need to change? What's preventing you from changing it now? Do you wait to fix it when it's broke, or do you break it to fix it? Do you wait until it's broke all the time to fix? Or do you go ahead now and fix what you see needs to be changed? And this is what makes a tough and a strong leader. CEOs and business leaders that make these changes before it almost seems like it's too early. But then later it's like, oh man, I can't believe they timed that the way they did, right? And it's the ability to have that vision that allows you to be a strong business leader. So one last thing I want to talk about, and again, we do everything based on time and volume. I call it sometimes volume, revenue, whatever, right? Okay. So we've talked about the 6 pillars. We've talked about the inflection curve, where you are, where you're living on that inflection curve based on those 6 pillars. We've talked about a growth organization versus a lifestyle company. but it's important to know which one you have. Hey, it's in red ink now. Okay, that's cool. So let's start. Your business started, whether you're starting your business on Monday, like one of you, or you're on your first trek in business. You are the chief doer in charge. The business rises and it falls on you. I like doing a lot of analogies. So, as a football analogy, this would be the quarterback, right? The quarterback's job is to get first downs and touchdowns, right? That's the quarterback's job, because the quarterback can't do anything on defense. So his job is to run the offense, get first downs and touchdowns. Okay. So some of the best QBs have reached there's a plateau that you can only control the offense, right? You can't do the defense. You can't go out there and make an interception. You can cause an interception, but you can't create the turnover, only negatively, because you're the quarterback who threw it, right? So once a quarterback has reached, unless you're Tom Brady, has reached their end of their lifespan as a quarterback, what's the next job? Well, the next job in line is a coach. In business, we call that a manager, right? Somebody who manages a staff of doers. There's a lot of intricacies related to that, because I was talking to Julie prior to doing this presentation, but for whatever reason, as a business owner, you're never going to find somebody, and you're most let down by friends and family, but you're never going to find somebody as committed and as productive as you are to achieving the end goal and the end result, right? So my general rule, and this isn't scientific in any way, but my general rule is the doers that I manage are going to do roughly 50% of what I did as a doer, right? If I generated $200,000 in revenue myself, I can theoretically expect the doers on my team to generate 100 grand each, right? So then it's a matter of, okay, if I was doing 200,000 by myself, and now I hire a team of 5 at 100,000 each, I'm now at 500,000 up here, because I'm now managing the 5 doers, right? And it's important to know that it actually costs you more money to go back down here and do than it is to just manage those people. Think about a plumber. Plumber can't charge enough when you've got a bunch of plumbers out there to be able to go out and fix a toilet. If he makes $200 on that job, well, he makes more than $200 an hour. So, you've got to be careful how much you're still doing once you get up here to the coach. Now, what's the coach's job? The coach's job is to win the game, right? But that's all he cares about, is winning the game. Because if you look at the Baltimore Ravens, there's so many people right now on the COVID-19 list that Harbaugh is just having to, and I'm a Ravens fan if you can't tell, but Harbaugh is having to put a team together of misfits, so to speak, not first team, to play against the undefeated Steelers tonight. So as the coach, you deal with the hand that's been given you. Who creates that hand, though? It's the next level. It's the GM, right? The general manager gives you the pieces necessary, gives the coach the players necessary to go out and win the game. And this is a leader in your organization. One other tidbit is Google has a theory that your team should never be bigger than one pizza can feed. Why is that? Because you can't keep track of 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, but you can keep track of 4 or 5. So as the manager, you're leading 5 doers. As the leader, you're leading 4 to 5 coaches, right? Who's the coaching staff that the GM leads? Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams, all those coaches, right? And the GM, what's his goal? His goal is to win Super Bowls. And he's looking out 2 to 5 years, right? Because he's looking at things that, okay, I got a guy that's a junior in college right now that I want, or these are the areas that we need to draft for. And then 2 to 3 years from now, we can have enough good draft classes to turn this team around. Ozzie Newsome, one of the best GMs in football, who's retired now, knew that. And that's why the Ravens always had a strong defense, because he always kept feeding the team with those players. And fill in any of the teams that you know of. But as the leader, your role is to manage or lead the managers. So then who's last? Well, last is the owner of the team, right? That is the sage that we call in business, the go-to visionary, the person, the chief visionary officer, the person who, whether he's in the building or not, these people are still working, but he sets the tone for the organization, right? Where do the GM and owner sit when watching a game? They sit up in the owner's box or up above the field so they can see the whole field, right? The coach can only see 30 to 30. The quarterback theoretically only sees 10 yards in front of him because he's getting a first down each time. Coach has 30 to 30. GM and owner have the whole field to look at, right? So just look at that perspective, right? So then if you think about 2018, the Falcons, Patriots, 28-3 lead. What did Arthur Blank do? The owner of the Falcons. He left his field of vision and left his job, which was to stay up here, came down to the field and started high-fiving his teammates, high-fiving, subverting the leadership of the GM and the coach, and started celebrating too early. And guess what happened? They lost. That is a microcosm of what it looks like in an organization. You think Jeff Bezos or Zuckerberg goes down and talks to his employees? No. No CEO of a large organization or owner of a large organization ever goes down and mingles with these folks. Not because they're better, but because you have to understand what your position is in the organization at that time. And you know what? When you're here starting out the business, when you're here starting out, you're all of these things. You have to cast a vision. You have to lead and think 2 to 5 years from now. You have to coach. You have to manage your own desires and your own wishes in the business. But then as you grow, again, knowing that the only reason you have employees is to get back time. So why not hire the best employees that you can that are going to get you to those next levels? And what's interesting is the best quarterbacks make more than the starting coaches, right? So when you take that leap, just because you take that leap, you might actually take a pay cut because it's going to take a while and it's going to take a different skill set to go from doer to manager, to manage the 5 doers. And then it's going to take an even different skill set to be able to go from manager to leader and leading the 4 or 5 managers. And it's going to take an even different skill set to become the owner and sage and be the person who sets vision for the organization. Now, if you want a lifestyle company, that's fine. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, but just be honest with yourself. And, the worst question I ask people all the time, how big do you want this organization to get? What's your goal? I don't know. As big as I can. Well, that's not an answer. Identify what your market share potential is and say, okay, if I know that it's 10 times what I'm doing now, what are these steps along the way? What's this roadmap look like to grow the organization? Going from 1 employee to 6 to 20 to 50 or even 100 plus employees. And the more disciplined you are in going through this process, the more advantageous it is for yourself, and the clearer vision you have, which then allows you to create a clearer vision for your employees that work for you. So, again, I talked about a lot, and my 30 minutes is up, actually right on time. So any questions? I know typically this is a lot more interactive, because one thing that I've learned is folks, typically people do about 5% of what they're told and 90% of what they come up with on their own. So that's why this is much more interactive. This is meant to be a tool for you guys to use yourself to identify potential inflection points. And then once you've identified the inflection points, identify, do you want a growth or a lifestyle company? And then also, where are you living and where do you need to live in order to get to the next level? That's all I have.
Hey, Danny.
Yeah.
We have Josh and Matt primed for you to bring on, and we have 30 minutes left in the session tonight. So you've got time to continue going.
Perfect. Okay. So let's do it.
Okay.
Josh and Matt, you guys are ready. You guys there?
Corey's got to flip him over. Give him 1 second.
Josh, there he is. There's Josh and Matt. So before I get started, any questions that come to mind as I went through all of this with you guys?
Sorry, I'm cleaning up. There you go.
No worries, man.
This was great, Danny. I really love I had never heard, I think you said it was Google that has the team should never be bigger than one pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard that before. So that was very interesting to me, but I also found myself wondering how big of a pizza you would need, because some people are pizza pigs.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Is that one for me and one for everybody else, or is that?
Right. So what questions do you guys have about what I went over so far, if anything?
Matt, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was sorry. I didn't have a question yet. Sorry. I don't know.
Okay. I can keep talking. So what's the name of your company? Is it you guys are partners?
No, they have 2 separate companies.
Okay. So what are the company names? Josh is the owner of what?
Avadine Beauty.
How do you spell that?
AVA and then DEAN Beauty.
Okay. And Matt.
Black Anchor Originals. It's BLK. Yeah, that works.
Okay. All right. So we'll start with Josh. All right. So the first thing that I typically go through is people, process, product, pipeline, culture, and finance. Right now, Josh, as you sit in your business, What would be the number one priority for you?
That's a really great question. I think right now it's that we're kind of hitting on culture because we're identifying who our customers are.
Okay. So
Does that make any sense?
culture would more be internal culture of your people,
Oh, okay.
which
All
you
right.
probably don't have any employees right now, right?
No, yeah, none. So would process that be?
Pipeline or product, because your product is who you're serving and pipeline is who you sell it to. So again, it usually with more time, I have more time to define these roles. So let's call it pipeline, right? Because you're identifying who you're selling to and how to sell it to them, right?
Right.
So then what would be second? People being employee, process, the way you go about selling it, up to and including the way you fulfill it. Product, is your product sustainable? Is it a new product? Culture, finance, what would be second for you?
I think the process would be next.
Okay. What
And
would
then
be then next?
the finance. Sorry, we're still trying to figure out things as we grow here.
That's fine. So this will have a meaning in a minute, but what's for?
Product and then people.
Yep. Okay. So then once I've identified the most important, that's the one I focused on first, right? So then I say, okay, your pipeline. Based on what we talked about, one being, again, unlimited runway. Two, is it stable? Three, the way you're doing it right now is plateauing you. And four, let's go back to black. There we go. Four is inflection and it's starting to affect your business. So right now, where would you say your pipeline is? Is it unlimited runway? You can continue to sell as much as you want. Is it stable? Is it a plateau, or is it an inflection and it's costing you money?
Well, Monday we just launched, so we're literally just free for all right now, trying to sell as much as we can.
Okay. One.
So,
yep. Two would be your process.
correct.
And again, there's no right or wrong answer. Where would you say your process is in as you start up? Because obviously you thought it was going to be one way and you've been in business now 3 days. Has it changed yet? Is it working? Is it stable? Is it, you can do it that way forever? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, after day one, it completely, went back down. The hype went down from the original day. So we now are rearranging what the marketing strategy is going to be. So with that, what would you put that under?
So with you revitalizing the marketing structure, I'd go back at a 1. But to just so you guys know, you went very quickly to a 3 in a day. And then you said, okay, we gotta revisit it and build a new inflection curve. And then so what this exercise is designed to do is, okay, the process that we just came up with, I don't see us hitting a wall on the end and its ability to serve us, right? But over time, as you're in business longer and longer, you realize, okay, well, the way we were doing it because of either environmental changes, like Corey was talking about environmental scanning, or your risk tolerance, with inventory management, your process in which you go about fulfilling or creating the demand or the service for the product needs to change. So there's no scientific formula on what time or what volume it needs to make a change. But what this is designed to do is then we look at finance. Where are you at on finance? Do you have enough money to last you 6 months to a year? Do you have infinite money where it's forever?
No,
Or,
we're very beginning once again.
so, but I mean, what kind of seed money do you have?
Well, we just started a pre-sale, and that's, the pre-sale was done so that we can kind of gear how much product to actually bag. We have bottles, they're empty. But I was always told, hey, we got to find out how much product we're actually gonna need to buy, because what we're left over with is our problem after that. What we'll have to dump at one point or get rid of. So we're waiting to see, so we can at least kind of eliminate waste.
Right. So, I guess for finance, you could see yourself, you have unlimited money, you're stable and have a year to two to play with. 3 is you have about 6 months of cash flow and that's about it. And 4 is you're late on all your bills. So if you had to put on the finance, where would you say that would be?
We're on a 3.5.
Yep. And it's interesting. The more I can tell you're starting to grasp the concept because people start breaking out the halves. So that's interesting.
We're not dead in the water. We're just starting, and we're trying to eliminate costs as much as we can until we need to go into debt with things.
Yep. So then you also have product. Where's your product sit? You don't need to make any changes because you just launched, right? So it's a brand new idea. It's not even stable yet because you haven't sold it. So really, you could see selling this product forever, right?
Yep, we're already going to talks about changes to make it cheaper, the product cheaper itself.
Okay.
Costs for us.
Yeah. So then number 5 is people. Where would you say the people are? Do you have any employees yet?
Nope.
Okay. So that the people and culture would be a 0 because you don't have any yet. But you can see as you hire people, you'll identify, okay, are the people that I have, are they going to continue to help me grow, or are they going to be a hindrance? And then what's the culture look like? So the one I would identify, obviously process and pipeline, you guys are talking about. So finance. Let's go over here. So finance is a 3.5. What's causing it to be at a 3.5?
Just the income. We don't have any income coming in. There's just one day of sales really, and now it's just going to depend on waiting for the product to get in the hands of our customers so they can review it.
They're self-financed, Danny. So
Okay.
they don't have any investors. They didn't take on any debt to start the business. They're completely self-financed.
So obviously there's a lot to be said for that. You don't owe anybody any money. So what is one thing that you can do to fix it?
Other than selling,
Sell more, right?
Yeah, it's just a matter of selling at this point so that we can build up some profits, that we're able to buy product again and at a higher quantity, so we can get price breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And that means also from the product itself to shipping to packaging, just numerous things, the total price of the product.
Do you know what those checkpoints are for your business as far as, okay, once I sell X, I can get this price break and it not put a financial strain on the business?
We're gathering that actually as of today, and yes, and tomorrow we'll be getting more numbers in.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the key is, you know, all this stuff that as the owner, right, you're having to put all this information together and set strategies and create vision and create all of these efficiencies. Somebody still has to do it all, right?
Yeah, but thanks to Julie and Corey, they've really helped me put that together in the business plan.
That's awesome. And it's important to have people like that can do that. So yeah, one story that I have is about the finance in particular. Much like yourself, they were very much debt averse, but it was a plumbing company who had grown exponentially on commercial plumbing, and he only had one banking relationship and no other line of credits except the one bank that they did business with. And so what came out of it was he went and literally set up 3 additional banking relationships with line of credit, which allowed him to triple his business again. So it sounds like you guys are already on that thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little different spin on, you know, if you're always keeping an eye on the pipeline, the process, the product, and really delving into, okay, I mean, I could spend, if once you get employees, we could spend a whole day just talking about people. And the pipeline. How do you sell? What are the environmental effects to the pipeline? Do people have as much discretionary income? You know, all those things that you can really dig into this as deep as you want to get to find some real answers. So just one example of what we can do. So, and we'll spend a couple of minutes with Matt now. All right, Matt.
Hey, Danny.
Yes.
Just real quick before you start with Matt, just want to let you know and do a quick time check. It is 5:45, so we have 15 minutes left. We want to make sure that we save at least 5 minutes at the end for Q&A for any questions that people might have.
Okay, cool.
Great.
People, process. It should be quicker since Matt's already seen it once. He can cheat.
And I paid attention
People,
a little bit.
process, product, pipeline, culture, and finance. So Matt, without knowing anything about your business, what would be the biggest focus for you in your business?
Right now, it has been, it's not what I have been focusing on. It's probably what I should be focusing on right now is people.
Okay.
People, and probably closely followed up by finance.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna go number 3, process. Number 4, culture. Number 5, I'm gonna go with product, and then pipeline number 6.
So it sounds like you're selling as much as you want to. You just have to get the right people in place to make it successful, right? So
that's a good, very good assessment. Thank you.
Yeah. So people, where would you say you are on the inflection curve of people?
In reality, I'm probably at a 4.
Okay. So the people that you have right now are actually costing you money.
I believe so.
How many people are in your organization?
Including myself, 3. I have 2 part-time employees.
Okay. What is it about what they do that is affecting your business, that is negatively impacting your business?
Well, one is my son, so that's a tricky situation. And he just doesn't have a whole lot of drive. So it's it's kind of, he's not, he works here because he needs a job, and my wife says, go work with your father. And so that doesn't really work for me, but in order to try to keep things somewhat happy and also keep him busy and making some money for himself, that's what so it's not it's not somebody I would necessarily hire. The second guy is only a couple of days a week, and probably the biggest thing with him is he just I don't want to use the word slow. He's just there's not a lot of energy. He kind of floats along.
Yep.
Kind of works at his own little pace, and so there's no sense of urgency. There's no sense of ambition. So I would say those are the two biggest problems right now I have. So because of that, I don't feel like I can pull a lot more capacity out of them. So I feel like I'm kind of tapped out.
So would it incentivize one of them to become full-time, and you could get more out of them that way? Are they what's their motivation? Are they motivated by money, having a job?
Well, yeah, my son is probably closer to full-time. The other part-time guy has another job. So we have talked about him potentially leaving other job because, just depending on the day of the week, he's not, necessarily thrilled with the other job. He makes the same amount of money with me that he does at the other job. I'm not so sure that bringing him on full-time really would light the fire, though. I just kind of feel like, he's been around for a good long time. He's a good guy. But I just don't feel like there's the capacity there or the interest. I think it's just not really in him to really, I don't see that he really wants more.
Yep. So nepotism is always going to exist. You have to keep your son there to keep the house, to keep the wife happy. Right. So is his goal to take over the business one day?
No.
Okay.
No,
So
he has no interest in taking over the business. And that was kind of my hope early on, but
yeah.
And there are things, he has, I try to find things that interest him within the business and try to keep him engaged, but sometimes what's interesting isn't always what needs to get done. So
Yep.
that's the dichotomy I have to deal with.
What's preventing you from replacing the guy with no ambition and hiring somebody that wants to work?
Nothing really. I have had other people. I had a summer intern, and I'm actually looking to hire somebody. I don't know that I would necessarily get rid of the guy he's only there 2 days a week. And I think he could potentially serve a purpose. And maybe bringing in another employee that actually is a little bit more high energy, that actually might incentivize him to kind of pick up his pace.
Right.
I think, I pick up my pace. Nobody really seems to pick up with me.
Nope. They never
I
do,
think
because you're expected to.
Right. Exactly. So but I think another employee might, so that's a potential. But at the same time, if I bring somebody on and they're, running circles around the other guy, I don't have necessarily a problem either telling him he needs to pick it up or move on. So right now, the biggest thing that I will say the biggest thing is I'm getting ready to move into my slowest time of the year. So I'm really kind of very hesitant because January and February are historically like rock bottom slow months of the year. So I'm really hesitant to bring somebody on right now that I might not be able to keep on during that lean time. So I'm almost kind of like buying my time right now a little bit to get through to that point.
Yep. Which makes it why finance is number 2.
Correct.
Yep. So, again, a couple things I'll say about this process. I typically do it in a group setting like this with business owners because very rare is it an opportunity for business owners to be this vulnerable. And I appreciate your vulnerability, Matt, because you don't get to talk like this with anybody else. You can't talk like this with your spouse because she'll just tell you to go get a job, right? You can't talk with this about other friends because they don't own a business. like you. They don't have the same problems. They just go to work, get a paycheck, come home. So I would encourage everybody on this call, if not with each other on this call, to have these types of conversations with each other, because you'll be surprised when you get a group think tank like this together, what ends up happening and some of the ideas that come out of it. If you guys aren't already doing it, because, you know, I can almost guarantee that there's one person on this call that has an idea that either dealt with what you're dealing with, or has an idea to help you overcome some of these hurdles. And I mean, we just spent 5 minutes on just one topic. We could spend an hour talking about people and ideas and strategies and theories and what could work, what wouldn't work. And this time is super, super valuable to just sit back and not be in the business and just work on it and just think through, okay, what would it look like to get rid of this guy and hire somebody else in his place? Or what would it look like to hire somebody else to motivate this guy? Would that motivate him? You know, and just all the possibilities, because you guys went into business because you're dreamers, you're entrepreneurs, you know, you wanted better for your family, you wanted better for yourself. And sometimes we lose that fire because life and the business just puts us out. And I would encourage everybody to continue to think strategically and continue to work on the business and not just in it daily. And even if you just want to chat with me or Corey or Julie, when I was telling them these topics, they were getting jazzed about it, right? Sometimes you just need to talk and talk it through. And I don't have any answers. You guys are smart enough to have the answers. We just provide the roadmap that allows you to think differently, because a problem can never be solved in the environment it was created. Write that down and I'll say it again. A problem cannot be solved in the environment it was created. If you think sitting in your office solving this problem is going to be the answer, Matt, I can tell you spend a lot of time in that office. Go somewhere else. Even just sit in Starbucks or Panera Bread. Sit somewhere else. Just a different setting will help you think differently. Josh, I see you're in your basement. Obviously, you're more mobile and you can think differently in different areas. But what I see a lot of times too is business owners that have an office. They sit in their office and they're bombarded with emails and all the things that they have to get done that they can't think strategically. Go sit somewhere else. Take a 2-day vacation. You know, people ask why I play a lot of golf, because I can sit for 4 hours and either work with a business partner or think through as I'm playing golf, or, you know, as I'm doing something that I like doing. I like going and smoking cigars. So I'm a member at the local cigar shop. Bill's met me there a couple times, and I'll sit in the back where the members sit. Sometimes I'll work. Sometimes I'll just think, right? You got to create that time for creative thinking. So we got 2 minutes left, guys.
Danny, we got 2 questions.
Yes.
2 questions for you, if we can fit into those 2 or 3 minutes. First one, for a solopreneur, how do the 6 key pillars apply to a business where they're going to be the only employee for, you know, forever?
So typically I'm working with people that have employees in my business. You know, obviously the people are I would say it would be more introverted conversation, because when I look at people for that business, it would be something like, is it still my passion? Is it still what I want to do? Obviously the product is the product, if you need to change it or not, the process in which you fulfill the product, pipeline, the culture, your culture in your organization. Do you want to work 80 hours a week as a solopreneur, or do you want to work 30? And does your business generate revenue without you having to be there? Because then you just own a job. If your business doesn't generate revenue without you being there, you own a job. You're a glorified employee. If you want to own a business, it has to generate revenue when you're not working, quote unquote, in that business. If you can't step away for a week or two on vacation and your business not run without you, I would seriously look at what you think you may have in your business. Because if you don't work tomorrow and your business doesn't generate money, that's one of those risks things that we talked about, that Julie talked about in the beginning, that is an impact to your business. So the next one.
Well, yeah, and I think along those lines, the generating money, like you're not actually doing money, but you're still generating leads. Like you're still
Correct.
There's something working where you're still, your business is working, whether it's your website or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah.
Second question, how do you motivate people who are not motivated by money or the work itself?
That has been one of my biggest struggles. Wherever I've been, I've gone into leadership very quickly, and I've always been in sales leadership. And motivating a 40-year-old when I'm 22 who needs to pay for his mortgage, provide for his family, you just can't motivate somebody. You can inspire them, but you can't truly motivate them. Inspiration only lasts for a short period of time, but motivation has to be internal. So therefore, you have to find people who are motivated by the right things. You might have to turn over your employees. It could be the nicest person in the world, but if they're not motivated by things that drive your organization, then you wouldn't hire somebody who's not motivated by money to be in a commission-only sales job. But if you just need somebody to work 40 hours a week at $20 an hour, they don't have to be motivated by money. So I would say it would determine on the job that you're hiring them for and whether or not they're a good fit for that job, right?
Yeah, and that is all we have for questions. Julie, do you have anything else? Because if not,
I do not.
All right. Well, that was the end of the session today. I appreciate everybody, Danny, Julie, Josh, Matt, everybody join in, obviously all the attendees. We will get all of these videos and everything uploaded to Kartra once we get everything optimized and rendered, which we have figured out has taken us much longer to get done than we thought. And that's on the Kartra side of things. But anyway, appreciate it. If you have any questions, hit us up on Slack, shoot us an email. All of the information for Danny and everybody else that's in Kartra. So feel free to reach out. Just let us know.
Thank you, Danny, for your time. I really appreciate it. It was really helpful.
Yep. All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Danny.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.